Where on earth is the most desirable place to experience life? There may be as many answers to that question as there are places to be. But for a select group of people who frequently visit a small lake in west central Minnesota, the answer is simple. That place is Lake Blanche. My relationship with Lake Blanche began the year I was born. That was the year my family purchased the cabin that we still enjoy today. But what is it exactly that we enjoy so much about this particular place?
This is wonderful. This is about the best opener we've had in a long time.
The fishing opener now is based on 2 months prior to Memorial Day weekend. That's where the fishing opener goes.
They were having fresh walleye for breakfast.
Yep, that's where they fish here. Madson's Hall.
I'm fishing at Madson's.
Yep.
19-inch walleye.
Now, of course, you released this so that we have no way of proving it.
No, it's in the live well.
You can show it to me?
We will probably have lunch later.
He's taking credit. I caught it.
He got it.
I caught it.
Well, I'm the guy. Yeah. Tell him your
I
secret
didn't.
lure.
Huh?
Tell him your secret lure.
I used a little crappie jig with a minnow about that long. And he gobbled it right up.
I'm fishing with my golden shiner, and he catches it on the crappie jig.
I can't top that story. I haven't been out yet.
We got to show him your fish. We're gonna go a little faster. I hope you don't freeze to death. You know, that thing will probably drive you nuts. My sonar has gone crazy on me.
This is live! Yahoo! Can't beat fishing on Blanche Lake.
Not to walleyes yet. Oh, there's a yet. There's the fish, John. Oh, nice little head shake. Be a walleye. You ready? Yeah, it's a walleye. It's a nice little walleye. Nice little walleye. All right. Good eater.
There you go.
Hey!
Let's see.
Yeah, that's a, well, I don't know. 15-inch. Oh, jeez.
Getting a call.
Well, now you got something to say.
How'd they know you caught one already?
Hello. Yeah, I just. Oh yeah, we've got a TV man out here fishing with us, and I just pulled in a 15-incher.
that beautiful?
We're here to put the tower in. Not.
Cool! Manny, you should come too. We went 2 minute boat, 2 minute boat, yeah, 2 minute boat, 2 minute boat.
In the early days, all of this surrounding land belonged to a farmer who had daughters. And he had Ethel and Emma and Blanche. And he had, what's the name of the little, Annie, and the little one. And so he named a lake for each of his daughters.
Well, if you look at the old maps, it says Lake Blanche. So, and I've kind of adopted that in my head because I think it sounds better, but it could go either way, you know. Do you call it Superior Lake? No, it's Lake Superior, isn't it? It's Otter Tail Lake, Blanche Lake, West Battle, it isn't Lake. But when you look at the old maps, it says Lake Blanche, and I kind of like that.
And somewhere along the line in the late 1800s, he decided to sell some of it. Well, my grandfather, who lived in Wadena and had a planing mill, bought a lot, and a lot of his friends did. This is the original cottage at Blanche Lake, first cottage on the lake in 1896. And so he built the first cottage. The old part of our cottage was part of the first one on the lake. There are 2 rooms of the old cottage, and these are The sun porch is small, and the same ceilings were put in, and Art put these back up, and after he put insulation in up there. And then this one old bedroom in here, that has similar hip roof. And those are the 2 original rooms of the cottage.
Our cottage was built, I understand, in 1906.
Well, Bob will probably tell you this, but the land, this is the deed for Bob's cottage. The land was given to a soldier that fought in the Indian Wars. Most of the lake was given as a reward for fighting.
And then his friends came, and he helped build John Carroll, I believe his name was John, and that's now Bud's Resort. And then many up and down, Miracles, people, Wiswell, people that I never knew because I didn't come along until 1925.
This is the newspaper article of the 2 people that were killed, drowned on Blanche Lake.
We're at the grave site of the only 2 known drowning victims that I know from Lake Blanche. The couple were engaged to be married by the name of Frank Kingsley, who was 20 years old, and Gladys Wiswell.
The girl lived in the Solene cottage. Her name was Gladys Wiswell, and the boy was Frank Kingsley. And they were very young. They went out in what we might call a duck boat. Everybody was preparing to leave.
But this drowning happened on Labor Day of 1910, which was August 31st, and it's always been kind of a mystery to everybody. They rowed their canvas boat over by the inlet. People thought they were going over to visit the Valentine Camp, which is now part of Glendalough.
Later on in the evening, they were looking for this young couple. They couldn't find them, and they ended up taking off in the boat for whatever reason, and they drowned.
And they found them by the inlet in very shallow water, and one of the myths of this whole thing is that she was found with her hair locks are wrapped around the anchor rope. We have no idea if that's true or not, but there are reports of the drowning. But it's always been kind of a mystery, and there's a lot of myths. Some people think they drowned themselves because she was pregnant or something, or nobody wanted them to get married or whatever.
And that's the only deaths or drownings that have occurred on this lake.
77 of the 79 years that I've been alive have been on Blanche Lake. Dad would drive us down in a car. It'd take 8 hours because there were no paved roads at that time, and we'd have many flat tires. We'd get here, and of course at that time the cottage was primitive. We didn't have running water. We had a well. We didn't have a restroom. We had to go out and back.
And all of the cottages, of course, they had privies in which your sister or your friend would lock you from time to time and have to climb out that little tiny square window. I was that small one.
Well, we're looking at the outhouse that was behind the Davis cottage all the while I was growing up, which was from 1931. And I guess I'm going to tell you this, and I know it won't be in, but when Dr. Tom and his family would leave on Monday morning, we stayed there. And because his outhouse was much fancier than ours, we used it all week long. Tom was going to burn this. And I said, Tom, don't burn that. Give that to me, or I'll buy it from you. Took me 2 years to find somebody that could deliver it to the lake, because it's not just a little building. It's got heavy beaver board inside. And so Richard Hochstein delivered it, and I have a picture of him delivering the outhouse.
This was what they call Wadena Beach, and they still name it Wadena Beach, but the terminology of the people who lived here was Whiskey Beach. And I think whiskey became, because practically everybody here was from Wadena, and there was a Whiskey Creek in Wadena, and so they sort of named this Whiskey Beach.
Then it became Whiskey Beach because we had several occupants that sometimes would go to Lions Club and on Wednesday night and not show up at home until 3 days later.
Well, this part of the lake was broken into 2 camps at the time. They used to call it Upper Camp and Lower Camp. And there was about a 5 or 6 cottage span where there weren't any houses built. And as a kid, we'd race back and forth and go to people's houses and listen to ghost stories from older kids. And that was really the original part of Lake Blanche. And it really ended at the Hazelwood Cottage, which was next to where Madson's Resort came in. And then Madson's came in, and that whole area down there was developed fairly rapidly.
Where we live now, and was the Seco place, was red. Was the only, I can remember it being the only place down here. And then at the end of that road, there was a fence from the farm that went out into the lake. And I remember the fathers talking about going and fishing crappie right off the end of that fence.
My dad and all of his friends from Blair, he brought up to, we built the Vinton cabin pretty much by hand. Bought the lot from Emil Madsen for $200, and then traded a new 46 Chevy for all the lumber and shingles and everything. So the cabin was built with a 46 Chevy.
The bay developed later. When I was a little girl, there was nothing in the bay. They had a Boy Scout camp there, And Betty Miner and I used to row over there thinking, oh sure, we'll get out and the boys will all jump in and swim to us. Well, can you imagine a scout leader saying, go ahead, boys.
After that was developed, then the Marty Beach area was developed. And then finally, the area past Marty Beach is now got about 10 or 15, maybe even 20 cottages down there.
Well, we got to start with Reuben Walvatney, the Norwegian farmer that's been there forever, and the Red Cabin. And the Red Cabin was the first one down on the west end there. Reuben's family owned the west end there where now Dave Volvos and Richard Parpart and Anderson. Those guys, I think, bought in the early 60s.
And of course, the cottages are bigger, probably better, but they don't have the history that we do down here on Whiskey Beach.
Talking earlier, I think, about diving towers. Well, Mr. Heselwood was a fine old gentleman from Wadena who lived just this side of the Madsen Resort, built a diving tower. He was the first one.
And if it starts going fast, just watch. Well, oh, uh-oh.
Sorry, Jeff.
I come up for a Memorial Day weekend back, oh gosh, I was probably 13, 14 years old, and Chris and Brian Oaf were there, and suckered me into doing it. The water was, couldn't have been 60 degrees.
Okay, 1, 2, 3.
I remember diving down and wheeling it out, pushing the wheels. You'd have to swim to the bottom and then physically roll each wheel. And that's what I remember about that.
I can remember when the first year that tower was there. And it was such a big thing for us to go out and jump off that tower.
1, 2, 3.
I was always intrigued by how did it get out here, and I'd take my mask and go down and look at those big tires down there. And then one year we came up real early and it wasn't in the lake yet, and we got to see it sitting up on the beach. But I remember that tower very well.
2, 3.
Well, I guess I only know two. That's your damn metal one, which was a afterthought after the original real diving tower of the Gaslins. That was wood that Punk Gaslin, I think, put together back in the late 40s, and it was in the lake in the 40s and the 50s, and it may have got into the 60s. I don't know how long. Then they put it in the back of their lot. I don't know why they didn't put it out again. Then there was like a fort on top of it or something. Maybe the grandkids or whatever played up in there. Probably not, but it sat there. Then I don't know, and then it disappeared. I suppose they disassembled it. And then some newcomers to the lake put out this goofy metal diving board with a real springboard on it, for cripe's sakes. That must have been in what, the late 60s?
Been coming to the water tower since I can remember.
It was actually in the early 60s that my grandfather Christ designed the tower out of drinking straws at our dining room table. I wonder now if he had any idea then how much joy that one moment of creation would bring to so many.
Go, Jeff! It's always been here. My Uncle Henry Grubel used to bring us kids all in the little boat. He'd row us down, and we'd all have on the big orange life jackets, and we'd all jump off the diving board. We always called it the diving board when we were little. And now I bring my kids, who are 10 and 8, and my niece, Leah, is here.
Well, have you had any fun jumping off of that thing?
Oh man, we used to go out there. I threw Peter Phillips off there. I don't know how many times. He'd wear his little life jacket. We'd hold him by the life jacket out to the end of the thing and drop him off. Yeah, it's a couple generations grew up jumping off that tower, so we had a lot of fun. It was right almost in front of the original Vinton place, so we just had a quick swim out there. And who'd have thought 25 years later I'd be the game warden here, so it's kind of fun.
Well, every day during the summertime, as much as possible when I was younger, I came here as much as I could. It's the only tower I've ever even seen on a lake, you know, let alone had the opportunity to jump off of, so somewhere where I love to be.
My family started staying here in 1949, and my parents were actually the first people that rented at Hanks Haven, it was called back then. And Emil Madsen had told them they'd stopped there to rent a cabin, and they were full. So Emil told them to come across and visit with Hank, and maybe Hank would have something. And so Hank swept out the sawdust and put in enough for them to get by, at least for the couple days that they were here over the 4th. And it started a tradition in our family of many years of coming to Blanche Lake. They ended up building a cabin in the early 50s, and my husband and I continued with our family coming to Holiday Haven with Stephen Artie, and we had a permanent camping spot for like 15, 16 years, and now we're fortunate enough to have our own small cottage on the lake again. So we have a lot of fond memories. Our kids have memories, and my grandkids, of course. Now this is where our heart is.
My husband and I had been looking for a resort 33 years ago, and we had met a real estate fellow and found out that this was for sale by the milkman who used to deliver the milk here. So we lived in Minneapolis and decided we wanted to get out of the big city and kind of have a more laid-back life. And so that's what we did. We came up here and bought Holiday Haven Resort. One of the best experiences is for our family. You know, I have adult grandchildren now, and they keep coming back because they grew up here on the lake. And as many of the people on Blanche have the same story. We've met great friends, and which of course was very difficult to make the decision to lease the cabins, because over 33 years of time we've established great friendships with people, and we still see some of them. They'll still come back and visit. But it's been a wonderful experience for my husband and I and my family. We all have a connection here, and you know, for the most part, people will not sell to just anybody, but to keep it as a family, so to speak. Blanche Lake is a very close-knit family, and we want to make sure that it stays that way. And of course, most of us try to maintain it and keep it in the families, and so it's very hard to break in. And of course, we're very fortunate to have Glendalough State Park on the other side of us, too, which keeps things down to a minimum. One of our granddaughters and I were at the commemoration ceremony when the Nature Conservancy gave it to the DNR and made it, I believe it's the 62nd state park. And it would have been a whole different connection, not to mention the fact Glendalough itself has such great history. And that is really a charming part of it in itself. And it's so nice for people, other people to enjoy it and to partake and be able to enjoy what Glendalough has to offer, along with us. You know, we can now beach the boats and go take a hike if we want, and we've got all the wildlife, and it just makes it so much nicer not to have it developed.
The history of the park started here, pretty much where we're sitting at the Glendalough Lodge. The property was purchased in 1901 by Ezra Valentine, who was a wealthy lawyer that was at that time from the Breckenridge area. He loved fishing in this area. He spent many summers fishing on Battle Lake and staying in the Prospect House in Battle Lake. And even when he moved to St. Paul and was working on the State Drainage Board, he remembered this area and he purchased some property here. He once was quoted in the newspaper as saying that he would rather live 2 weeks in Battle Lake and then die than to live 100 years out on the flats. He purchased this property in 1901, and by 1903 he had construction going on here, building stables and a bathhouse and a summer cottage. And in 1905 he completed construction of a summer residence. Unfortunately, about 2 weeks after he completed that residence, Ezra Valentine died. But the property did remain in the family until it was purchased by a local speculator and owner of the local lumber yard, Fred Everts, in 1925. He sold the property to Frederick Murphy of the Minneapolis Tribune in 1928. And Mr. Murphy had already started a game farm here with some property he'd purchased on Lake Emma in 1927. So this was added to that property, and Mr. Murphy added over 800 acres to the property, which he later named Glendalough. Glendalough means the glen between two lakes. In this case, that's Annie Battle Lake and Blanche Lake. It seems quite appropriate. It was named after an Irish monastery. Mr. Murphy and his wife were both of Irish descent. Mr. Murphy died in 1940, and the property was acquired by the new owners of the Minneapolis Tribune, the Coles family. At the time, Mr. Murphy had owned quite a few other properties besides this, and Mr. Coles had not seen them all, but he immediately ordered his people to sell all the farms and things that Mr. Murphy had owned. But he was advised by somebody that he should come and take a look at Glendalough before he decided whether he should get rid of it or not. At that time, he came up and he immediately fell in love with the place, and he and his family spent many summers here. In addition, Glendalough served as a retreat for some of the Star Tribune employees and as kind of a perk with hunting weekends for the advertisers for the Minneapolis Star Tribune. In 1990, after Mr. Coles' death, and the family was no longer using the property very much anymore, and they decided to donate the property, which by then had grown to almost 2,000 acres, to the state of Minnesota, with consideration that it should be made into a state park.
Want to go swim? Yeah, let's go.
And that's what it is now. We still have a lot of history here, and we're making a lot of new history with the new visitors.
Ready?
Okay. Currently about 50,000 people a year that come to visit Glendalough. Otter Tail County with its 1,000 lakes, just a beautiful landscape, especially here where we have a lake, Annie Battle Lake, that has so little development on it, and all the lakes are sand bottom and crystal clear, and just great for all kinds of recreation as well as just for their scenic beauty. Also, we're on the transition zone between the hardwood forest and the prairies. The park has restored a lot of the original native prairie that was here, and still has some stands of old trees and woods that have been here for hundreds of years. You're always going to see deer here, and that's become kind of a tradition with Glendalough. Even when it was private, people drove through the area looking for the deer. When the game farm was here, there was actually a captive herd of at one time that reached up to probably about 35 deer at the game farm. People would come in on Sundays to see the deer as well as the pheasants and ducks and geese that were raised here. Now we've replaced that with more of a natural situation, but there's still plenty of deer to see. There's wild turkeys here. There's all kinds of waterfowl. There's sandhill cranes. We have fox in the park. We have otters in the park. We have fishers in the park. Campers will tell you we have more than our share of raccoons. We even have a wolf that wanders down here in the wintertime. So there's just a really very diverse habitat here that suits a lot of different wildlife. In years where we've had success with our eagle nest in the park, we've had hundreds of visitors come just to see the eagles when they're nesting. So there's just countless wildlife viewing opportunities, and we've built many wildlife observation blinds out on our trails to take advantage of that. Most of all, it gives them a wonderful opportunity to go hike and canoe and recreate. And Blanche Lake is a very different lake. It has a lot of motorboat traffic and that kind of thing, whereas you have this peaceful state park next to you where everything is quiet and serene and much the way it was 100 years ago. It provides a nice complement to what Blanche Lake has to offer. I think it certainly increases the benefits of living on Blanche Lake by having a resource like this close by. It definitely makes the area that much more of a destination.
Between people that are on the lake, we know what kind of a fishery it is. For people that we don't care whether they ever come or not, we tell them how bad it is. You know how fishermen are. You can't always believe everything they say. So.
Hey boys, your bobbers can't be too deep now. It's shallower in there. If you cast it up against the reeds, they come out of those reeds. You want to grab your bait, go back in there. We should be able to just float around in here. You can tell how deep it is because you can see the bottom.
My grandfather always used to say, because I used to spend time as a kid up here with my grandparents when they'd spend a couple of months. My grandfather said he could hardly wait until I turned his age, and I suppose he was 65 at the time that I was up here with him, that the northern in this lake were going to just be humongous by the time I got to be his age. Well, they haven't grown a bit. They're still this size, but they make wonderful pickles. And so anyway, that's a fish story.
That might be a keeper bluegill, Julie.
Done some ice fishing up here now that we're living here, and I've got a 10-pound, 2-ounce walleye that I put on the wall. And my mother back in '75 caught an 11-pound walleye off the dock, which we have on the wall. There's some nice walleye in here, some big northerns and big bass. And so I'm very pleased just to sit here but not tell anybody that we have any fish.
All right.
I'm the owner of Woodlawn Resort. I started in 1948, so this is my 60th season. We operate only in June, July, and August because for 34 years I was teaching and I couldn't start until June, and then I had to get back at the end of August to teach. The first 4 cabins were built in 1946 by a fellow named Paul Holland, who is a returned veteran from the war. He operated it in '47, and then he sold it to me. I was just finishing high school at the time, and I've been running it ever since. My wife Phyllis joined me in 1956.
This rose was a gift to us last year for our 50th wedding anniversary, but unfortunately,
Not doing very well.
we didn't dust it or anything, so.
and we're still going. We still have guests whose families, some of the guests actually started coming in 1949, and they're still coming. And in fact, they take up practically the whole resort now with their extended family, 4 generations. Next year they'll have all 9 units. We've gradually expanded from the original 4 units, and of course those were simply fishing shacks. There were no interior walls. The only running water was the water you ran for. The boats changed from the old wood boats that you had to scrape and varnish and paint every year, and that leaked if they weren't constantly soaked up in the lake. And then we gradually switched to aluminum boats, which really has saved us a lot of work. Once the resort is full of guests, might seem paradoxical, but the work cuts down. Until the guests get here, we're busy improving things, fixing things up, and once the guests move in, all we need to do is cater to the guests' needs. Our neighbors, the DeMars, raised 2 boys, John and Jim, and they each served a term here as dock boy. John, of course, grew up and became a neurosurgeon, and Jim is a professor of music and a composer. So they both began their careers here in very humble positions and have made illustrious careers for themselves. Pete Phillips worked for us for several years. His father, Sam, also worked for us. Sam was probably our first dock boy. His father, Chuck, from Wadena, they had a cottage just up the line here, came down here one day when Sam was about 13 years old and said, "I'd like to have you give my boy some work to do. If you can't pay him, I'll pay you to have him come down here, and it's good for him." Well, of course we did pay him, but part of the deal was that Chuck, who had a clothing store in Wadena, would give Phyllis a good deal on a new winter coat. So we got Sam, and Phyllis got a winter coat, and Chuck got his son employment. So Sam worked us for a number of years, and then he grew up, and eventually Sam married, and his son Pete worked for us for a number of years. And of course now Pete has children of his own, and he talks with us once in a while about his son coming down and being a 3rd generation dock boy. The only problem is that he's got competition with our own grandsons. One thing that's unusual about the interiors of our cabins is that they're all paneled almost exclusively with wood made from trees on our own land here. Unusual feature of our resort is the sailing. In 1965, I became a dealer for the Sunfish sailboats that are made out in New England, and I keep 3 or so in a rental fleet and sell them either new or used. But along with that, in 1972, we started the Blanche Lake Sunfish fleet. And we used to have regattas every other weekend all summer long. That's been a lot of fun.
Okay. It gives you that, and then this keeps the boom from rising up when you're getting downwind. This keeps it from coming up and hitting you.
Oh,
that's what this is for.
And there's a rope right behind you. See it right there? That's good. We are underway.
Jeff, tell me about learning how to sail on Blanche Lake.
I learned how to sail on my brother Bob's Elpex, which was a little fiberglass sailboat. Didn't know the first thing about sailing. We just got out and it was all trial and error. And we figured out after many spills, turning it over, turning it upside down, figuring out how to sail.
We have 2 sunfish. Joe was racing all the time. I used to race on ottertail a lot, and then I used to race some on Blanche with the sunfish. And I used to keep a C-class scow out in front, and we had a lot of fun sailing that.
But yesterday it was very gusty. Today it's more consistent, so it's more predictable. Yesterday there were tremendous gusts, and then there'd be no wind, and then it would gust out of a different direction, and you never knew where it was coming from. So. Many years later I took sailing lessons, and it was such a piece of cake because I knew how to do it already, and it all made sense then.
Another rock. In the bucket.
Beep, beep.
1970, my folks went out looking for resorts, different parts of Minnesota, and came back and bought one in Battle Lake on Blanche Lake. We were originally from St. Louis Park, and my folks owned and operated Arbor Resort until 2002.
There were 3 family members that were looking for cabins, and my dad had asked if we wanted to go in on a cabin with him, and we said no, that would be too difficult. And so he said, well, if you find a resort, you can buy a resort, and then we'll all get along better. And so I found this in the Star and Tribune.
It worked well as a family business. We all participated. We had many people that returned year after year that came from southern Minnesota, Nebraska, Iowa, Missouri. Came back year after year. We saw many generations come throughout the time.
From time to time we will rent to folks. Most of the folks that we rent to have been coming here for 30 or more years. And when we bought the place, they just wanted to continue renting to where they had been vacationing as a family.
Saturday morning was cleaning with family members. All the maintenance and work was done by family. It was our kids that helped when they got old enough to sweep sidewalks, put flowers in the vases, change the toilet paper roll, carry the bed sheets from cabins into the store. We had a small store that had bread, candy bars, a couple of pinball machines where we could play when it was rainy days. We had bait, mixed gas, mortar rental, aluminum boats. Everybody came on Saturday afternoon and probably didn't leave until Tuesday or Wednesday at the beginning of the resorting. It was families that came in station wagons and stayed until the end.
The main house my folks will stay in, and maybe one of my brothers or sisters with smaller kids might stay in the main house with their kids, but otherwise there's 5 cabins here and there happens to be 5 kids.
It was like coming on vacation and never going home.
Oh, it's a really great lake, clean, sandy, and people are friendly. Having the state park on the south side really reduces the density of people out on the lake.
I thought for the surrounding areas it was a fine place to grow up, and I see that for my children also.
My John Deere flag up out on the flagpole here. It's John Deere flag is actually kind of in honor of Ted Overby. He used to razz me about John Deeres every time I would get out of my pickup when we come to the lake, so I thought that'd be a good honor for Ted. But today is the 4th of July. The John Deere flag has to come down and we have to put the American flag up. Just good to be with family and friends today and to celebrate the independence of our country.
Bring another one.
right to your left. How cool is that?
How many years you been in the boat parade, girls?
I have no idea. 5.
The boat parade, we're in it every year. We don't take the first prize because we just pile about 10 children in a boat and take off, and they all want to go on a ride, so that's what we do.
Welcome to the parade. Welcome to the 4th of July.
Happy 4th. Does somebody need to get in? That's what I want to know.
It's all positive. It's all positive. Everybody loves it, and the kids just love it, you know, and they're busy decorating their pontoons, their boats, and what have you. So I've never heard a discouraging word.
How does it feel being decorated up like a float?
Feels pretty cool.
Bonnie, is it an election or are you just appointed queen?
Patriots hard at work.
First year I started the parade and ran at the beginning, and since then, whoever's in front, why, they start the parade. It starts right at noon. And it either starts at the East Bay or the West End, and we alternate years on it. This is an odd year, so that it starts on the East End.
Oh, look, they got a whole boat full of hunters.
Well, just had a little idea one year that, well, we should have a parade. You know, they had parades on other lakes, and thought, well, why don't we have a boat parade? So about 10 years ago, I tried to get a parade organized, and we had 6 boats. Well, we tried it again next year. We got 18 boats. We tripled it. The next year we got 54. We tripled it again. But now we're starting to run out of boats on the lake, so it stays pretty well from 50 to probably 70 or 80 boats that run each year. One of the interesting things is that we have some friends down in Judy Low down towards the East End there that very musical families, and so we decided to have a band one year.
1, 2, ready, and...
Put them on the pontoon, and the band has been a big hit every year.
This is our favorite.
Signatures.
Everybody ready? Here we go. 1, 2, ready, play.
They know maybe 4 songs. They play their instruments maybe once a year at this time, and they have a little practice the night before, and that's about it. But everybody loves them.
Happy 4th of July! Go!
This is our 34th family reunion for the Tossensons. We've hit them up here every 4th of July for the past 34 years.
The menu stays the same every year. We just have more and more food every year because the kids are getting bigger, and I believe this year we had 8 salads for 33 people. Plus our regular menus, so we go through a lot of food. They eat all day long.
It gets better and better. The kids keep growing up, but they want to keep coming back. That's the good part.
So it's a fun day. They all bring food, and we just have a great time.
Take the cameraman out if you have to.
Way to not hold back, guys. Well, 6.
Tom, my brother, and Sam were about 2 years apart, and they were real close. Well, they decided it was time to get a board out here and pull it behind the boat. So I saw them. They went out in the garage and they got 3 or 4 boards,
and put a crossboard, pound it on it, and got a place where you could tie a rope. It was all the motor could do was to pull that, but that was the first board that I know of on the lake.
What I remember is that I was 5 years old, and we had a fishing boat with a 12-horse Sea King outboard on it and this old pair of Northland skis. And it took me the entire summer before I actually got up and skied. Back then we were always sort of pushing the limits of the technology. The equipment wasn't that good, the skis weren't that good, you were skiing behind very small outboard motors.
Good job. Good job, Dylan.
I think what happened is we would get bored with the capability of the boats pretty quickly, so we would think of new things to do. So one of the things was a surfboard that was like a big sheet of plywood, and you could go behind that. You could go to fairly slow speed, so you didn't need a big motor. We'd put a lawn chair on it, so you'd sit on the lawn chair on the surfboard and be going behind the boat. You'd take a piece of plywood and cut it in a circle, turn it into a saucer so you could spin around on it. And then eventually we started getting speedboats. And so then you could get going a little bit faster and start doing a little more. You could start slalom skiing. And of course, they were wood skis. The bindings were so rough they made your feet bleed when you skied too much. And then we started getting into more exotic skis, like shoe skis. And shoe skis were about yay big, basically is the size of a binding, no rudder on them. You could turn around on them and go backwards. The problem with them is if you got going a little bit too fast, the skis would plane out, and they didn't have curved tips on them. So you'd catch the water and you would simply disappear. And my brother used to have great fun when he'd be pulling me and they'd just get me going a little too fast, and it was the disappearing bill trick. And in a matter of a second, you'd go from being there skiing to just the underside of your skis showing. We had this little slalom ski that was about this long that didn't have heel pieces. It was just two toe pieces on it. It was called a ski scat. We still have it. Not curved in the front. You'd have to get up on another ski, drop that ski, and then ski on this thing. And the same thing, you were on the edge of falling all the time because you'd catch the front of it and you would just disappear. The human skis. I think we saw this at a ski show once where two guys got planed out on their backs behind a really good ski boat. And then another person was between them on skis, and then that person dropped one ski, stepped on one person's chest, and dropped the other ski and stepped on the other person's chest. I got to be the one on the skis, and my brother Tom and Richard Overby were the human skis. So we didn't have wetsuits, and we didn't have a terribly fast boat. I believe it was behind the Overby's 80 horse. So they got going on their backs and planed out as best they could, with their swim trunks catching water, and I'm looking down on them just on the skis, and water's pouring over their heads, and they're coughing and holding their breath and trying to hang on. And then as soon as I would drop a ski and step on somebody's chest, I would just push them underwater. They'd have to let go because they couldn't stand the pressure. We tried this for probably a whole afternoon, and I'm not sure they were able to raise their arms over their heads for a week after that. I tried wakeboarding once. I got up on a wakeboard. It was the most awkward feeling I could imagine. I would not do the rail. There's something about encountering a solid thing in the middle of water that just seems inherently dangerous to me.
Are you okay? What went wrong? What happened there?
I didn't eat dinner with my grandparents last night, and they said it was going to come back to haunt me, and I guess it did. So I got some pretty good, oh boy.
One of the huge differences is the equipment. The equipment now is so much better. And so in that way, you're not forced to be as creative as we were when we were at the limits of everything. We sort of make jokes about the wakeboarders because it's a little like farmers and ranchers. You just have different needs. I mean, for skiing, we always wanted a fast boat with a very small wake. For wakeboarding, you want a fast boat with a huge wake. And on a lake our size, the huge wake just keeps going and going and going, almost to the point where you put one wakeboarder boat out on the lake and you don't want to go out and try and ski. There are almost no slalom skiers left on the lake. People who just go out and slalom ski for the sheer joy of it. And it's a thing of beauty to watch. I remember being 10 or 12 and the two skiing gods on the lake were Chuck Overby and Bill Miller. And when Chuck Overby or Bill Miller were out on the lake skiing, you just didn't go out. You went and stood on the dock and you watched them and you just marveled at their strength and their grace and the beauty of it, and you didn't dare get in the boat and go make waves for them. There was just an inherent amount of respect there. Because of that, there was a closeness in the skiing community, and there was sort of a shared set of skiing etiquette. You really could predict where someone was going on their run. You knew how to stay out of their way, they knew how to stay out of your way. So it was sort of a calmer time in that regard, and a sense of community, a smaller community on the lake. I remember laying in bed at night and hearing boats go by, and I could tell by the sound of the motor whose boat it was. And you can't tell that very much anymore. We sort of lost that sense of texture. You can't tell, a Mercury outboard sounded different than an Evinrude outboard, and you can't tell that anymore. We've lost some of those little idiosyncratic characteristics of the machines that made it really interesting.
My dad and mother and Manny and I came up here fishing and stayed at Hemquist Resort. He had 2 little cabins, and Dad borrowed a motor from my uncle, and it didn't work very good. And finally, Mr. Hemquist told him to go over to Rudy Crone, who repaired motors and various other things. So in conversations, he said there was a nice piece of land down the beach for sale. So he said, why don't you just take your boat and drive down there, because you'll come to it. So we came down here and walked all over it, and we went back home. Actually went back to Sioux City and came back. Dad and Mom came back the next day and bought it. And it was about almost 30 acres. And that's how it all started.
When they arrived, I was 14 years old, and Manny, the architect, was sent out to catch frogs to go fishing, and he brought me home to his father, and his father said, "That's quite a frog you've got, Manny."
They always gave us chores to do to keep us out of trouble, like pick up pop bottles back when they were 2 or 3 cents or 5 cents for a deposit. And I'd bring them in and want to sell them back to Grandpa, but he would never go for that because they were already on his property, so they were already his pop bottles. Or the time when he sent us out to catch frogs to sell at the boathouse, and there again I thought I should get reimbursed for them, being he's going to sell them. And I brought the box, and it was an old Bazooka bubblegum box we had them in, and I brought them in here, and I suppose he was sitting there drinking beer with somebody, and I wanted to sell them, and he thought they were his already, and the guy with him wanted to see them, so I opened up the box, and frogs everywhere.
When my dad died, then we bought the resort from Mother, because she couldn't handle it by herself. And at that time, Carl, our oldest son, and Linda, our oldest daughter, had both worked out here. And everybody said, this would be great. So here we are.
When we bought the resort and then we started doing this, well, the cabins were all painted different colors. It was pink, white, green. Yeah. Anyhow, we decided, well, why not paint the cabins all one color? So we picked on this dark green. And we painted the cabins dark green, and the people could not tell them cabins from out in the lake then that this was even a resort. And they said, we never changed the boathouse over the stripes. So they're out there, they had an identification mark to find the resort according to the boathouse.
I was 17 then when I was the boat boy. Lived in this place, had a stove over there, 2-burner propane stove, little refrigerator, and an old bed that I suppose came out of one of the cabins here that I slept on. And the memories are, some of the stuff was kind of scary because at 4 o'clock in the morning, all of a sudden I'd hear this pounding on my door. And it was people going fishing and they were wanting bait. Well, I think I'd probably been in bed maybe for 2 hours. That was real interesting. I don't know if you need to know any of the particulars about what we did for entertainment around here, but the biggest thing that Kenny Shermack and Sam Phillips had was on Saturdays when we'd get the new crop of young ladies and their folks that would come to stay at Manson's, I had to give them a report. So every Saturday afternoon or Saturday evening, then we'd have a ladies' report. So that's, jeez. But had a great time. Had a great time here, and I can't think of a better place to be than Blanche Lake.
You know, the kids all grew up here, and I think they all thought it was great. I asked Carl one time what he thought of it. He thought that we should have stayed at Battle Lake, and he said no. He said this was the best entertainment, best job that they could ever have.
Last night I was across this lake at Ottertail.
Yes.
And there were 3 people there that are staying here whose grandparents started coming here when it was open.
Yep, like 50 years ago.
Yeah, and they're track coaches and track runners. I don't know if you know who they are.
I think I know who you're talking about.
No, Molly, I forgot what his name is, Pat.
Carl and David bought a cottage right next to Melanie's, and Eric has built several cabins since he's been here, remodeled the store, and now it's his baby. He can do what he wants with it.
I had business degrees getting out of college, and interest rates are 23%. It was Walmarts and Woolworths that were hiring, and I didn't see myself as a suit guy, so I kind of saw myself as a boathouse boy. So that was it.
Well, we've been very fortunate. Our group of people that have been coming for 3, 4, 5 generations have all been very pleasant. They're usually, they care about the lake as much as we do, so they've always been real good about taking care of it. And their kids are now coming, and they're also enjoying it, so it's been good. The kids all remember me. I'm either Tammy or the Candy Lady. You know, Eric is, I think, he's up at the boathouse more and stuff like that, and he's not in the store as much. They don't quite recognize him as well, but it is neat to see the kids. You know, they bring plastic bags down full of pennies and stuff, and then they're all counting them out one at a time and everything.
That's all I need.
It's fun watching all the kids grow up, you know, even not just as much as just the resort, but it's all the kids down the beach and everything. It's neat to see, you know, they start out real little and now they're 10 years older and stuff like that. It's really interesting. It's all the kids have matured really well, and it's just fun.
How history repeats itself.
Yeah, kind of like when we were kids, you know. That's how I met Eric. My family used to come up here to the resort when I was a kid. We were 13. So I've known him forever.
She kept the boathouse boy from doing his chores.
Right.
Oh, it was actually my aunt and uncle used to come up here before us. And after we got married and our oldest daughter was about 2 years old, we decided we wanted to come up and try it out. And we've been coming ever since. That was about in 65 or 6, I'm not sure which.
Biermans have been coming up here a lot longer than we have with their family. We started down at Arbor Lodge on the same lake the first year when I was 6 years old, and I'm 41 now, so you do the math there, that's a long time. And then we moved up here, started in one cabin down there, and just continued on. I think I'm the only kid that's never missed any day of vacation up there. It's just something you just don't want to go without. We had choices when we were growing up if we wanted to go somewhere else, and we always knew what to expect when we came up here. It was the best beach, the best swimming area. You know, the lake was smaller, you didn't have a lot of boat traffic, and we just always have had a really good time up here.
You know, over the years, we've developed a nice relationship with the Malmstrom family, and clear back to Emil Madsen, and then Gene and Chuck Malmstrom, and now Eric and Tammy.
We have 1 or 2 groups that are into their 5th generation. One group from Missouri, one group from Iowa, and several others. There, you know, many 3 and 4 generations. These people that are here in camp now are in their third generation.
That's really become my passion, is wildlife and nature photography now.
You want to go straight back by those reeds to start with?
And then follow the shore around? I started doing photography in high school. If we go around the bed of reeds, That's where the long-necked grebes nest. So we can head over there and take a look and see if they have any young with them. And it just took off. At first I did a lot of portraits. This is like a Pocahontas moment. I actually did a couple portfolios for people who wanted to get into modeling, both children, the parents who wanted to get their children into modeling, and for adults. And I did it free, just to get the experience, whatever, build my portfolio. I think it was when I bought my house in Apple Valley. I got into gardening and I was so proud of, what I produced, and I wanted to photograph it. And then photographing the flowers, and then pretty soon it was the insects on the flowers, and then it was the birds, because they're the most elusive. You have to be very calm, very quiet, very patient. Did you see them, honey? Did you see them? There's a ton of opportunities. Did you see her baby? She has her baby on her back. Just this last weekend when we went out, the mother, father, and baby loon. And that little baby, oh God. Did you see it was like this big? See him kick his leg. The great blue heron, my dad and I were just out, was it the night before the 4th of July, we went out in the boat. Got pictures of the great blue heron up in one of these trees over here. And what he was doing was he was dive bombing the birds that if you could get into the reeds, which is almost physically impossible, but there's reed beds in there where mallards lay eggs and the terns, there's a lot of terns in there. Anyway, they dive bomb and I think they try to get the eggs or the young. And these birds were attacking the heron, trying to get the heron to leave the area, and they chased the heron up into one of these trees, and we had just gotten through the reeds ourselves, and we were back over in this area when the heron landed, so we were literally right under it when it landed in the tree. It's pretty cool. And there was an eagle flying overhead, and of course, at the time I didn't have this camera, I had the little digital cheapy one, and I couldn't zoom in on it fast enough, so I got one shot of him flying away. But we've seen him, we call it the eagle tree. There's like a thumb sticking up, and he'll stick his fish on there and then like tear them apart, or whatever he catches. So great blue herons, loons, eagles. There was a deer that came down and was drinking water from the beach. There's Baltimore orioles that have been heavy coming to our feeders for the oranges and for the grape jelly. And they've actually been bringing their young. The red-winged blackbirds have been coming with their young. The wrens, babies, it was pretty awesome. We had a family of wrens right in front of our cabin, and her babies just left the nest this morning. So I came out, it was 7 o'clock, I think, in the morning, and the little babies could barely fly. They were hopping around down by my feet. There's chipmunks galore up here. There's solid black and gray squirrels. There was what I thought was a fisher, but may have been a mink farther down the lake. Last year there was an injured pelican. There's just so many photo opportunities and beautiful sunsets. The sunsets change depending on the amount of cloud cover, depending on, if there happens to be ash in the sky. I think it was 2 years ago there was a big fire burning out in Montana or something. And the sunsets were just incredible then. I mean, not that they're not spectacular now, but I mean, just really incredible.
It makes me feel connected. It's interesting, it's fun. You've thought of something, you've tried it, and arranged it or rearranged it, and you have an end product, and it feels good. When you see Marcia Bernard's granddaughter make a necklace and put it on and feel so good that she decided to take her clothes off and parade around. I mean, nothing can be better than that. It's wonderful. It's fun to see the kids grow up, you know, from year to year.
I can go back 3 or 4 generations with people, and very seldom do you see a cabin come up for sale on Blanche that isn't spoken for. Stays in the family, which I love, you know, because I like all the people on Blanche, and so it's kind of neat that way. And we got friendships might go back 50, 60 years just because of the lake, you know, so it's great.
There is something special about this place, about the people here. Probably because we're so connected, so interconnected. We don't wall ourselves away from each other. We have family ties that continue on. Well, yeah, and then you get down to Wadena Beach, and there are lots of family ties because they've all known each other forever, you know. I mean, the lake isn't magic. It's magic to all of us, but it isn't magic to anybody else.
2 summers ago, I made the comment, "Ooh, we should have a cookbook." And so I kind of put the feeler out to see if anybody would be interested, and I got enough recipes to have a cookbook. Even though I've been coming up here for almost 45 years, I consider myself a newbie on the beach because so many of the roots go back generations before that. But every time we'd come up, I was always struck by the fact that there was always so much good food. You know, everybody had potlucks or cocktails with hors d'oeuvres, and the thing that struck me was people were always willing to share recipes, and each time a recipe was shared, it was always prefaced by, "Oh, this originally was Pat Overby's recipe," or "This originally was somebody else's recipe," or "I got it down the beach." And so I soon realized that these recipes circulated beyond just the immediate cottage that they were in. I was also struck that every beach had its own little community, but yet there was always some common thread that would tie one beach to the next, and it may very well have been a recipe.
I've been coming here since before I was born. There's pictures of me in my mom's stomach, and then pictures of me in the sink getting a bath because I didn't have anything but the big shower as a baby. And I was telling my wife around the campfire that if I had one place I had to be, this would be the place.
Do you have our marshmallows now?
I sat around the campfire last night till 1 o'clock just listening to the loons. It's the most peaceful, relaxing place. It's a place when I leave here, I look forward the next 364 days to getting back here.
I come back here and it's as if I never left because I've been fortunate enough to have so many of these friends that I grew up with and played with when I was a little kid are still here. And so that's wonderful. The teenagers and all the way down to a 2-year-old, we all played together every evening. And now in a small town, it is so much more diverse. This was it. We had just this many, and then there were probably 4 or 5 cottages on the other beach that had kids, and they would come down here. We all went fishing together. We went swimming together. We played games all the time. We knew all of their little secrets, and they knew ours. And there are some very funny stories that I could tell, but I don't dare. The skinny dip stories and all those funny things. It ties people together. It really does.
Our kids all love it. Our friends love it. Lots of good place to see family and get together. It's special.
My brother Bob and I would come up and we'd spend maybe a week, long weekends, and maybe 1-2 week long stretch. And every time we'd leave, we'd go down the road, we'd make that little bend by Madsen's Resort, and where there would be tears in our eyes. We just didn't want to leave. You know, we just didn't want to leave. We wanted to stay here. And today, I was playing with my grandson, Otis, in the lake, and we were just jumping off the dock and playing, and he said, Grandpa, he said, I want to live here. This is where I want to live.
You'd like to live here?
Yeah.
You really?
Yeah.
All year round with Grandpa?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's always the way I felt about it. I wanted to live here. This is like home.
This project started as a journey to discover if Lake Blanche is indeed unique and special in the world. The answer is both yes and no. Every community has its history, its stories, and its cast of characters. It has been said many times that life is a journey. Those of us who visit Lake Blanche have been blessed with most beautiful scenery. It is this scenery, this place, that acts as a thread that connects us to each other. The physical impressions that we leave behind on this planet are soon swept away. It is the impressions that we have received from those who have gone before us, and the impressions that we pass on to those who follow, those waves we create that shape our reality. Give freely those gifts that have freely been given to you. Discard those things that you no longer need. Live well and stop often and listen to the waves in time.